What if Stone Age tinkerers had actually caught the spark early? What if they had somehow found, captured, and utilized electricity thousands and thousands of years before the modern era? It's a massive thought experiment. If ancient humans had unlocked this secret back then, how drastically would the path of human civilization shift? And, maybe more importantly, what would we lose along the way?
To even wrap our heads around this scenario, we gotta remember that electricity wasn't invented. It was always there. Lightning tore through the night sky, and it was this raw, terrifying power. Honestly, it's no wonder ancient civilizations worshipped these violent, awe-inspiring flashes as the literal voices of gods. We're talking Zeus in ancient Greece, Indra in ancient India. It was a completely raw force, totally out of their control, but undeniably intensely real.
But here's the thing, they didn't just see it up in the sky, they actually felt it in the water. The ancient Egyptians encountered this power firsthand through electric fish. In fact, they were so terrified of the Nile catfish that they literally named it the Thunderer of the Nile. They instantly connected that incredibly painful, shocking jolt they felt in the river to the exact same terrifying power that came from the thunderclouds above.
And then, humans started physically interacting with it. The ancient Greeks realized that rubbing fossilized tree resin, amber, which they called electron, created a static charge that could attract feathers and lightweight objects. That simple, intentional act of human hands generating a charge, that gave us the very root of our modern word electricity.
Okay, but what if they went further than just a neat little static pull? Let me introduce you to a real artifact that still completely puzzles historians today. It's called the Baghdad Battery. Discovered in 1938 near Baghdad, this unassuming clay jar contained a copper cylinder and an iron rod, all sealed neatly with asphalt. And the most incredible detail of the whole shebang? It is roughly 2,000 years old. Get this, if you take this exact ancient design and pour in an acidic liquid they readily had on hand, something like vinegar or citric acid, it actually functions as a crude battery. It produces an estimated 1.1 volts of electricity. Now sure, 1.1 volts is basically just a tingle on a fingertip. It is definitely not enough to power a light bulb, but it absolutely proves that the physical capability to generate a continuous, artificial current existed millennia ago.
Which leaves us with a massive puzzle. What on earth were they using it for? The debate among historians today is still very much alive. Was it an early electroplating tool for applying incredibly thin layers of gold onto silver jewelry? Was it an early form of medicine, or maybe crude pain relief? Or perhaps it was theatrical, secret ritual shocks delivered by a temple priest to convince worshippers of their divine supernatural power?
This artifact really fuels our speculative, alternate history scenario. Let's just picture the timeline of a Stone Age tinkerer. First, the capture. A curious mind traps a static charge in resin and bone, creating the first crude jar of stored shock. Then, the repeat. Maybe by accident, then by design, they reproduce the shock to stun fish in rivers. Next comes the ritual. Village elders can't explain it, so they wrap the mystery in sacred myth, making the spark keepers these heavily feared figures. And finally, the spread. Ancient trade routes carry the secret across continents as rival clans race to control the source of captured lightning.
When you stack our actual long timeline of human progress up against this alternate history, the divergence is mind-blowing. In reality, we tamed fire about 1 million years ago, but we only truly mastered electricity about 250 years ago. In our alternate history, the Stone Age is drastically rewritten. We'd be looking at early electric cooling preserving food, massive leaps in metalworking, and faster, safer medicine through crude cauterizing tools. All of this happening thousands of years ahead of schedule.
But, well, let's be real about human nature for a second here. It's a melancholic and maybe slightly humorous reality that any power good enough to heal can easily be weaponized. Paranoia would take root so quickly. Think about it. If you wield a hidden weaponized jolt and your rival only has a stone-tipped spear, you win. This asymmetry would have undoubtedly triggered a terrifying, ancient arms race thousands of years too early.
And this wouldn't just cause wars. It would fundamentally corrupt the structure of early society. A priestly class might hoard this knowledge as a sacred, deadly secret, intentionally stalling broader scientific progress just to maintain absolute control over the masses. Plus, the few villages with access to a spark source would completely monopolize trade, food, and territory.
We're talking vast, insurmountable inequalities lasting for generations.
There is a very grounded reason this dystopian electric stone age didn't actually happen. Science isn't just a sudden magical flash of lightning. It needs time. It's a fortress built meticulously, brick by unglamorous brick. Before we could ever tame electricity, humanity had to lay centuries of groundwork. We had to grasp the invisible concept of the atom, understand the complex mathematics of a controlled circuit, and literally invent instruments precise enough to measure currents way too small for the human body to even feel.
It was never going to be one ancient genius having a sudden eureka moment. Real progress required testing, failing, and crucially, writing it down. Thinkers like Alessandro Volta, Michael Faraday, and Benjamin Franklin left careful, exhaustive notes. That deliberate, collaborative community effort is exactly what ensured that the next generation never had to start from zero again.
So, the historical case remains open, and I want to challenge you to investigate the implications yourself. First off, if your ancient village discovered captured lightning, would you share it for the greater good or protect it as a weaponized secret? Second, which everyday modern use of electricity do you think would most shock an ancient mind? And third, what other natural phenomenon did early humans observe way before they truly understood them? It's fascinating to think about how human nature drives, or totally delays, progress.
Spark is still out there. Every single massive leap forward in human history began with someone simply asking, "What if?" The world remains full of hidden mechanisms waiting to be uncovered, and the next great spark of discovery could very well be yours.